Good morning, everyone. Hello, good night, good evening. My name is Ishida from Nippon Foundation. We are having an interview with a person with disability for this video. This interview is basically for you participants who have never encountered people with disability or about problems that people with disability have, to enable you to have better information about the daily lives of people with disability. And for me personally too, this is the first time through this project that I am involved in people with disability, so I would like to have a candid exchange for this interview with a person with disability. And today we have Ms Fukushima, who is actually a participant to the hackathon as well. Ms Fukushima is a recipient to Nippon Foundation scholarship. She studied in the United States. So I'd like to ask you, first of all, for you to make a quick self-introduction. My name is Fukushima. I am a student at the graduate school at the Tsukuba University of Technology. My major is architecture. My research topic is architecture for the deaf. Thank you. When we talked last time, you said you were working in an architecture firm. Are you still working at the firm? Yes. I'm an intern at an architecture firm. I see. So specifically, what do you do? In the architecture firm, there are various types of projects, one of which is services for the deaf people. So I'm responsible for dealing with people, deaf people, clients. So your colleagues, are they normal hearing people? Are they deaf people? What is it like? This architecture firm is a very small firm, and all other staff members are hearing people. I am the only deaf person. And for communication, I have a supervisor who gives me instructions. And at first, my instructor can only use simple sign language like good morning, thank you, but we have to communicate by writing. But after working together for 1 year, my instructor now can use sign language to communicate. I'm very happy. That's great. That's impressive. Yes, sign language is a tool for communication, so I guess that's the way it should be. So for other staff members who cannot use sign language, how do you communicate with them? Well, basically, many of my clients are deaf people. But for clients in other departments, they can hear, so I cannot understand what they are discussing during meetings. So my supervisor would summarize the contents and tell me later on. So in those circumstances, if you have a clerical work, you have a meeting in a fixed office space, and in those cases we can use a personal computer and a sound recognition software like UD Talk that would convert sound into text, so we can read the text on the screen. But when I go to the construction sites together with the clients, the sound recognition software is not very good. And therefore, my supervisor would summarize the discussion and let me know later on. But I cannot have a real-time communication. It's very difficult. I don't know what they are discussing on real time. I see. So when you are in an office, you can have online tools for sound recognition tools, but if you go to the construction site, there is no effective app or tools that would help you with communication. Yes, that is right. For example, in a construction site, it is very noisy. The environment is very noisy, and the sound recognition doesn't work very well in that kind of environment. And in a construction site, there are many people there, so I cannot tell each of them that I cannot hear, and to ask for them to communicate by writing is very difficult. I see. So that is maybe a place where we can try to improve. So in terms of your work, you said you were involved in sales activities, and mainly your clients are deaf people. So can you tell us more specifically about your sales activities? Yes, I do design as well as sales. And when we have meetings, there is a client who is deaf, and my supervisor is also present. And my deaf clients, we communicate by sign language. But of course, architecture terms is very technical. So even for normal hearing people, it's difficult to understand. So I take photographs, I make illustrations, so I can show them and better understand the architecture terms, technical terms. And for deaf clients, most of the family members are hearing people. So before, they were listening to the conversation, the discussions, and staff members who can hear, and the family members can also hear. And in those circumstances, staff members talk with the family members and not with a deaf family member. And the deaf person then would feel left out of the conversation and feel a little bit lonely. And of course, some family members will try to act as an interpreter, but often they say, "Wait, I will let you know later after the meeting." And in those cases, the deaf person will feel left out and feel lonely. So I knew this. So when I joined, I tried to communicate by sign language. And so when my supervisor is talking, I try to communicate by sign language to the deaf family member, so they can have a real-time understanding about the discussion and the meeting. So they tell me that they feel happy about that. Yes, I'll let you know later is probably the key word here. So when you have a deaf client and you have the supervisor, and of course you are in between to help with the communication. But when there is the other staff members, do they also use sign language? Yes. We look at my supervisor using sign language, and if that is not sufficient, I'll try to add. And also there are new technical sign language terms that my supervisor does not know, and then my deaf clients say that is not the correct sign language, this is the right way. So we try to teach each other on the correct sign language to use. I see. So basically, when the client is a deaf person, you use sign language. Yes. So the majority of the people use sign language. It's a very new, it is rare, isn't it? I think that's wonderful. So in your work, you mentioned just now that you have a challenge about communication in the construction site. But can you tell us in other instances, other challenges that you have in your work? So as for the challenges, as I mentioned earlier, this communication with construction workers is sometimes difficult. When I try to communicate from my side, there are few means to do that. So in order to receive information, we can use sound recognition technology. But when we want to communicate, when we want to send out information, there are limits. In recent times, some people use hearing aid or cochlear implants, and some deaf people can use speech, and I can also use speech. I can talk, I can produce sound in language, but I try not to. That is because if as soon as I start using speech, people misunderstand. They say, oh, you can speak, then I don't have to use sign language. But they don't understand that I cannot hear. So we need to communicate to that we cannot hear. So I try not to speak. So I use sign language. I use writing to communicate. But of course, that is time consuming. I have to input text, and we use our smartphones. But they are still not a very good app in our smartphones. So maybe during this hackathon, if we can have a tool that helps the deaf people to communicate information, it would be very good. I see. So of course it is time consuming to use text for communication. If there are better ways for real-time communication, that would be good. Yes, for example, in the iPhone, there is a software that converts text to speech. If you enter text and then you select the text and you press a button, then the text will be converted into speech. I think that is convenient. But of course, this is time consuming. You have to enter the text, you have to then select, and then you have to then convert to speech. It is time consuming. And also, it is very difficult for us to adjust the volume. Because we cannot hear, we don't know whether the environment is noisy or quiet. And then we don't know how to adjust the volume to the correct level. So if we can solve this problem, that will be very good. Thank you for that input. We hope that you would be able to work with the other participants to solve this problem. Yes, I look forward to that too. And now moving on to another topic about, like, we can talk about your personal life. In our discussion before, you mentioned about a tool that will remind you to not to forget things. For example, keeping the tap water on. Normally, hearing people would know by sound whether the tap water is running. So, how we try to help people with hearing disability to remind them to turn off the tap water. Can you describe in more detail about this problem? Well, when I was living with my family members, they can listen, they can hear, so they would remind me if I forget to turn off the tap water. But when I joined the Tsukuba University of Technology, all students are deaf students. So I was living in a dormitory, and all my friends, they cannot hear, so they don't notice the sound. If we are forgetting to turn off the tap water, nobody notices. And when I started living in a dormitory, I began to think that not being able to hear is a problem. So we forget that the bathtub is overflowing, and then we look at the utilities bills, and it's very expensive. And for me, I try to be careful, but because we cannot hear, if it was a hearing people, they will be able to listen to the electric sounds or the fridge is making sound. There are many things that hearing people can judge by, but we have to be careful, and it is tiring. And if we can convert the audible information into visual information, that'll be very good. For example, if in a doorbell intercom, some people use flashlight to know that there's somebody at the door. So if we can convert audible information into visual information, that would be very good. Yes, I sometimes forget, maybe once a week, to forget to turn off the tap water to fill the bathtub. Oh, really? Even if you can hear, yes, when I'm too busy, I sometimes forget. Well, I feel envious of the hearing people. You know the garbage truck? They come collecting the garbage, and I didn't know they make sound when they do the rounds. I didn't know that. I try to put out my garbage in the morning. I don't know if I'm late or early. So my friend told me that, do you know the garbage truck plays sounds when they do the rounds? So then I didn't know that. But if you wake up 5 minutes early, that would solve the problem, wouldn't it? Well, yes, that is true, but yes, the garbage truck, yes, that's true. It is making sound. And of course, the COVID, during the coronavirus pandemic, their public announcement is also broadcast over the public speaker system. So if you come to think about it, there are a lot of sounds in our city. Well, I didn't know that either. Maybe you just mentioned just now about the sound, the noise that you make, and you said before that you wanted to be able to monitor the noise that you create, for example, during eating. So can you tell us more specifically about this, about monitoring the noise that you create in your daily life? Yes, noise when I eat, of course. At night time, when late at night I drop something, I know that this creates sounds. But I don't know if this is acceptable noise for the neighbors or not. For example, when eating, the noise from eating, I don't know what is acceptable for others. So because I major in architecture, we had a lesson about monitoring the sound in the environment. And we use app to monitor the sound in the environment. And I use that to know whether my room is now quiet, and therefore I need to be careful not to make too much noise for the neighbors. But then it is still difficult for us to judge whether the noise is too loud for the neighbors or not. So it would be interesting if we could find a tool to monitor the sound. Yes, for example, when we close the door, sometimes we make too much noise. Yes, my family members tell me that try to be careful early in the morning and late at night. But What time is early morning? If you are a hearing person, they'll be able to know what the general environmental sound is. So they would know from 8 o'clock the noise will be acceptable or not. But for the deaf people, we cannot know, so it's very difficult. Yes, the sound that you are making, the noise, is probably related to the issue of communication as well as manners and etiquette in terms of creating a better living environment. Yes, thank you. So we asked you about your work and also about your personal life. And lastly, do you have anything that you'd like to share with the listeners about your recent activities? Yes, I'm involved in services for the deaf, as I mentioned earlier, and we are now using flashlight. And we are now selling this new type of flashlight. So before, in Japan, we did have flashlight, but they were very expensive, like maybe $1,000. So normal people cannot buy this flashlight. And of course, government subsidies are available, but in order to receive the subsidies, you have to meet requirements. For example, disability certificate class 2. Class 2 is a very severe disability who cannot communicate. And also all family members have to be deaf in order to receive subsidies. So if, for like me, I have family members who can hear, I am not eligible to receive the subsidy. And I have to rely on my family members, which is not a very good thing. So if you think about deaf children, and 90% of the deaf children, the family members are hearing people. And in such cases, they depend on the other family members and they do not learn the habit of obtaining information from visual cues. And we have this flashlight that was developed in the United States. This is a very good, so we decided to sell this flashlight. Can you show us? And it is not expensive. And this is a flashlight. So I'm not getting really understanding this, but when do you use this flashlight? Is it only for one purpose? So maybe I told you before, one is for the doorbell intercom. We cannot hear the doorbell, so if we connect the flashlight, when there's somebody at the door, we can see the light flashing. And also when the telephone is ringing, we can also know. Well, in Japan, there are some expensive flashlights. And also they were only offered in one color. So we could not distinguish between whether the sound was from the doorbell or from the telephone. But from this flashlight developed in the United States, there are different colors for different purposes. So we can say that for this color, this is the door. For this color, it is a telephone. We can see from the color of the light. So in this event, I hope that the participants will listen to the voices of people with disability and try to solve those problems. So can you show us the flashlight one more time? I see. The different colors correspond to the different purposes, right? Yes. So the price, how much is it if you were to buy other types of flashlight in Japan? and what is the price for the one you are holding now? Oh, this one cost about $100. And if you were to buy a similar flashlight in Japan, how much would it cost? In Japan, the other ones will cost like $800 to $1,000, so it's very expensive. So for those people who cannot use the subsidy, or for deaf children, we think that this flashlight is convenient. So of course, you can use this one flashlight for multiple purposes is probably another key feature, isn't it? Yes. So I think that most tools for people with disability tends to be expensive because the market is very basically small, and on the other hand, you have to invest money to develop the technology. So it would be very good if we can develop products that is affordable to people who cannot rely on the subsidy. Yes, I think you're right. So this time we are trying to develop products through the collaboration between Japan and Israel, and we do not have to think about applying for subsidies as long as a product is competitive and attractive. Then that is good. That is good. So we will try to reflect what you have told us to develop new ideas and products. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us for this interview. Thank you very much. Ms Fukushima will also be participating in the hackathon, so please use the dev post or Discord to try to communicate with Ms Fukushima if you have ideas to solve these kind of problems. Looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.